Today we're going to talk about the new error code 402, which will enable thousands of new possibilities all across the internet. Like you all know the usual error 404, right? Page not found. It happens all the time. But now there's a new error called 402, which stands for payment required. And now you might think, well, does the internet want my credit card now? But not really. The X402 error is actually really cool because it enables you to pay in microtransactions for certain use cases. Imagine, for example, Netflix, but instead of a subscription, you pay per view, or an API that you, for example, animates images for you, and AI agents paying each other. So there's tons of different possibilities. And today I'm gonna explain you how it works. So I'm gonna go through the whole specification of X402. Then I'm gonna show you all the different SDKs that exist and that have Solana support. And then I'm gonna show you a bunch of examples. So let's get started. To structure this a little bit, we're gonna go through the guide how to get started with X402 on the solana.com page. And here you can see, first we start with how does it work. And before I explain you how this diagram actually works, I want to show you a quick example. So on this page here, we have a Solana X402 paywall. So here we can see this blurry fish. And now if I check the access, it asks me, hey, you got a 402 error. So there's payment required. And now I can just pay 1 cent on Solana mainnet. And as soon as I approve this transaction here, we will be able to access this content. So I pay for this app, and now I can see, now I can access the full resolution image. So let's click on it. And so the actual image was like a video, but you can now already imagine what you can do with it. Like you could have photo galleries where you can access certain things. There is a music generator here, which lets you call an API that generates music for you, and it costs like 2 cents per minute. And there's also an API here that lets you animate images. So you can, for example, have a Twitter bot, which actually enables images for you. So I built this little example. So there's a Solana dev helper here, and here in the replies you can see that he is actually animating images for people. So here he was like animating our last developer call, for example. Here you can see us, and Bree is picking up some weird spider for some reason. And here is me animated, and yeah, just a bunch of images. So this shows you what you can do with it. You can now just have an AI agent that is able to access an API to animate images, but it can be any API. So you can basically take your API key and upsell it to other people on a per use basis. So, but how does it work? So like I showed you here in this image library, the first thing is we check access. So basically we call the server with the content that we want to access. And then the server replies with a 402 error, which has specifications on what it wants. So this one, for example, wants on Solana mainnet 1 USDC sent. So here we can see the client does a get API call to the server. And the server replies with 402 payment required. Then the client creates a transaction with the payload that the server expects, and it adds it to the X payment header in base 64 encoded. The server then verifies the transaction, and then he sends it off to the network, and as soon as it's confirmed, it will deliver you the content that was required. What you can also do, if you want to keep the implementation easy for the backend, you can add a facilitator. And this facilitator has another API spec, verify, settle, and I think there was, verify and settle. And then actually you basically call the API of this facilitator, and the facilitator will handle all the blockchain parts for you. So it will submit the transaction and it will confirm the transaction, and once it's settled, you get a 200 response with the X payment response and with the content that you requested. So in our case, this would be, for example, the talking fish. So yeah, this is how it works, and the facilitator is optional, but it makes it, of course, much easier to implement. So today I'm gonna go through a few examples, some of them which have facilitators, and one just native direct Solana example which implements the spec. So, and the Spec is actually, it's an open protocol. So you can go to X402.org, and here we can see it's an open protocol for native internet payments. And there's a reference implementation of Coinbase, and there's a bunch of different implementations of this. So I think what we should do first, though, before we go through all the different SDKs that are linked here in the guide, is talk a little bit more about use cases. So what you can, for example, do is you can have pay LLMs with it. So any API key that you can think of, basically. So there is an example here that you can check out. Then you can, for example, have MCP servers that are monetized. MCPayTech is, for example, working on that. Then you have agent-to-agent payments, which is, for example, using the Google A2A payments. Then you can have premium AI training data. You can paywall articles on a website, for example. Or like Twitter could, for example, implement it to sell their data, or Reddit. Right, so because this data that they have is very valuable and they don't want any AI agents to crawl it, but AI agents also don't want to pay the X API, which costs like $200 a day or a month maybe. Then you could do it with audio streaming. Like, for example, you have a stream and you want people to watch it for like 5 minutes and they pay 5 cents for it. Or Netflix example, for example. Then you can have high resolution images. So there's 2 of these examples. One is using the Agent Commerce Kit, and one is using the X402 Coinbase example. So you can just check these out and run them locally. Then you could use it for newsletters. You could use it for API mirroring, for serverless functions, for real-time market data, analytics dashboards. I saw someone build a dashboard where you can actually access Dune queries, like Solana data, and you pay X402 for it. So it would be really cool if you have an agent that, for example, wants to trade for you, if it could like access historical data and just pay like a few cents for it. Then you could also use it in the DePIN sector and have, like, for example, IoT sensors that give certain data only if you pay for it. You could also use it for games, tournament entry fees, for example, or you could use it for like as a bot protection. Like, for example, the normal client, when you play, maybe you don't mind if you pay a few cents. But if you have like 5,000 bots and you want to earn from the bots or prevent botting, then you could just add a fee for playing. And file downloads. It would be also really cool if you're into it, to build like a peer-to-peer data sharing network where people actually pay other people to provide the content, because it's like risky for the people to provide the content because it's expensive and maybe there's copyright, so maybe you want to pay them. So I think this would be a really, really cool use case. So, but this is just a start. Like the things that I could come up with, I think there will be thousands of cool possibilities that you can build with it. So now I'm going to show you the different SDKs that are currently available and that already have Solana support or that currently have Solana support in progress. Like I said, you don't necessarily need to use an SDK, but of course it makes it much easier. So first of all, we have the Corbit SDK here. This is basically Solana first implementation of a facilitator, and they have a very easy to use example that I'm gonna go over with you right after we went through all the other SDKs. Then MCPayTech is basically offering MCP servers that are pay-gated via micropayments, also on Solana. Then we have the Pay.AI facilitator. So they are offering a facilitator which makes it very easy to use in the client and in the backend, same as Corbit. Then Coinbase is basically the reference implementation. So they drove a lot of the initiative for X402 in the beginning, and someone added Solana support to this as well. There's a bunch of end-to-end examples. So I think there's like 6 different Solana use cases that you can just run the tests on. So you can just clone this and run it. And there's currently Python support being implemented. and there is already TypeScript support, so you can use an Express server and Axios or something like that. And there is also a next example currently in development, which should be live soon, which I'm excited about because it will probably make it super easy. You can just deploy it to Vercel and then you immediately have your API ready. Then ACK is the Agent Commerce Kit, which is really cool because it adds some layers on top of X402. So it supports the normal X402 protocol standard, but it adds a bunch of new things like agent identity, for example. So it's very important for like regulations and so on that you actually know who are these people that paying me, right? And with ACK, what you can do is you can give your agent an identity, and then whenever you request something from the server, you actually get can check that the identity of the agent is linked to a real person. So this is also really cool. So we have a few examples of these. Then there is Crossmint. Crossmint is also working on X402, but there is no Solana support yet as of this recording. But they promised they're gonna have Solana support by tomorrow. So let's see how this goes. Maybe we make a new version of this video eventually. Then there is A2A X402. This is a repository by Google. And what it allows you to do is to have agent-to-agent communication. I'm gonna show you an example of this in a bit, but basically what it means, you can have a chat open, and then you can tell it, hey, I want to buy a banana, and then the agent basically gets all the different products that are available, and then it offers you to buy this one also using Solana. The Solana implementation is currently still in development, but there is already an example that you can check out, which is based on a X402 branch. So as you can see, this this whole thing is like very much in development. So it's like it's super new, and everyone is currently trying it out. So Solana is also currently running a hackathon. So if you're watching this video in the next 2 weeks, you will be able to participate in this hackathon, and you will be, there is 50,000 USDC in prizes. Then Nexus also said that they're gonna implement Solana support soon, so probably gonna make a follow-up video on that. Then there's X402 Scan, which is just a website that shows all kind of statistics about X402. And currently it's like a bit slow. I think it's has a lot of load. I think someone implemented some minting of a token in here where you could just press a button and you mint a token, which doesn't really have much to do with actually X402. But yeah, it's also a use case, so you can also use X402 as a token launchpad if you want to. You can implement it in X402 Scan, or you can like basically have it yourself. You just set up an API that mints a token every time you call it, and you pay a few cents for it. Yeah, so it's definitely possible. Questionable if it's like super useful, but yeah, possible, and got a lot of attention in the last 2 days. You can see the page isn't even loading. But usually the page like shows all the different integrations of X402, statistics, servers, the different facilitators that exist, like Pay.AI and Corbit, for example. So yeah, this is a good resource to check out, and if you're building something, maybe it's worth for you to get an integration with X402 as well. So now that we went to all the different SDKs, I'm gonna show you 3 different examples now. So first of it will be Corbits. Then I'm gonna show you this A2A X402 Google agent that can buy a banana. And then I'm gonna go through the example here at the bottom, the native example, where we basically re-implement the spec natively on Solana without using any SDK. The Corbit example. So basically we're gonna go through the quickstart that they have on their website, and I'm gonna show you how to run it. So first we just run it by npx tsx end-to-end ts, and then we will see that we actually get an RPC response of the current block. So, but how does it work? So here we can see, first of all, we load a key pair. Then we say for the network, we want to do Solana mainnet. So actually this key pair here needs to be a mainnet key pair that has some SOL and a little bit of USDC. But you can already see that the implementation is like super small. So first of all, we create a wallet with our key pair. Then we create a payment handler. And then we wrap our web request with the fetch with payer. And the fetch with payer basically uses our wallet to pay for access for this URL. And this URL here we can see is actually a wrapper around a Helios RPC. So helios rpc.orbit.dev, and we can send him a request. So in our case, we want to get block height. And to get the block height, we will actually pay on Solana mainnet. I think it costs some fraction of a cent, and then we will get the RPC response and we will log it out. So this is actually super convenient, super easy. So if you are not too much into Solana development or the blockchain, then this is a great use case. So, and I want to quickly show you how the transaction looks like as well. So now I opened the address of my key pair in the Solana Explorer under mainnet, and here we can see 2 minutes ago we got this, did this transaction. So we sent 0.0001 USD to the address of the facilitator, and then we were able to do an RPC call. So it's as easy as that. Next, let's look at a little example of agent-to-agent X402 by Google. So this is their repository, and it basically enables agents to pay other agents. And the support is not like completely merged yet, but maybe by the time you watch the video, it will already be merged. So the example can be found here, and I'm now gonna run it locally. So basically I start the server and I start the client. And then I gonna open this Google Agent Kit, and I gonna ask it if I can buy a banana. I want to buy a banana, please. So now it does a call to the LLM, and the LLM will reply with, hey, you need to pay if you want to buy a banana. So you get a bunch of products, and then it will reply you with what you can buy. And then there is an X402 exception, and then we're gonna pay for it on DevNet, and then we access the banana. So here we can see now that the agent is replying. So I want to buy banana, and it says like, hey, yeah, I found a banana in the products. And now I say, yes, I want to pay for this. And now there was this exception that, hey, you need to pay for it. And then we paid for it. And now we can see our order of banana is being prepared. Thank you for the purchase. And here we can now look at the transaction. So this is on Solana DevNet. It was successful. We paid 0.005 cent for the banana. And then we were able to access it. So yeah, I think this is also really cool. Maybe wait until the Solana support is completely merged, or maybe help get it in yourself. It would be also, of course, very appreciated, since like all of this is like still super new, and lots of the SDKs have like base Sepolia hard-coded, and there's not really multi-chain support. So a lot of Solana developers are now going in and implementing that actually it becomes more chain agnostic, that you can just use any chain to pay, which I think how it should be basically. So for the native example, I actually prepared you a little repository with 3 simple examples. So the first one is pay in SOL. Basically you just get a 402 error and you pay a little bit of SOL. The second one is pay in USDC, so in SBL token, using a USDC because most of the other examples also use USDC. And then the last one is using the Coinbase facilitator, more specifically actually the X402.org facilitator, not the Coinbase facilitator, because you need an API key for that. And yeah, now we're gonna go through this. So you should be able to just clone the repository and then run these examples. So here we're gonna go through the USDC example because it's probably the most useful. So on the right side, I'm starting the server, and on the left side, I'm starting the client. And the client now calls the server, hey, I want to access premium. Then he gets the 402, then he does the payment, and then here we have the transaction. So here we can see on DevNet, we are paying 0.00001 USDC, and then we get back the premium content USDC payment verified. So now I'm gonna go through the client code. And I mean, this whole flow diagram looks very complicated, right? But it's actually pretty easy. So first of all, we create a connection, we load a key pair, we create ourselves a payer, and then we run this. So we call our server, which we started here on the right side, and we want to access premium. Then we get back a 402 error, and then we prepare a transaction. This transaction has our the mint, we authorize a certain USDC payment. So we take this from the response payment amount and mint. Then we log this out here. Then we create associated token account if we don't have it yet. Then we check the balance, and here we get the latest block hash. Then we are creating the transaction. Then we are base 64 encoding it, and then we basically call the same endpoint again, but with the already signed transaction. And here we can see we are adding the transaction, we are signing with our payer, but we don't sending it that. So we are sending the base 64 encoded transaction to the backend. The backend then validates that the transaction is okay, so it simulates it and checks if there's enough USDC amounts in there. And then afterwards we get the payment proof, and then we lock it out. And let's now look at how the same thing looks in the server. So we have the recipient wallet, so it's basically where we send the USDC to. We have the mint, of course. Then we have the price, so we want 100 USDC, this is basically 0.00001. Then here we get the payment header, and if there's a payment header set, we are passing the transaction, and if the transaction is okay, so here we have this check, which is of course easier if you have this in a facilitator, because you need to be quite careful here, because you are actually getting a transaction from a client and then you are sending it. So here we are checking if there's enough USDC sent in the transaction and if it's valid. And if it is valid, we are simulating it, and if there's no errors, then we are responding, like we are sending off the transaction, we are confirming it, and we are responding with the premium content that the client requested back to the client. So this is all checks here. Here we are checking if the amount is correct, and then the payment was verified, and then we print out the transaction, and then we deliver the premium content to the payer. So yeah, it's actually quite simple. And now I want to show you in the end how the same thing would look like using Coinbase. So here we can see, yes, it's not too different. So we are also loading a key pair, but we are basically creating the signer. And then we have this withPayment interceptor. And then we just basically call our API, and all the transactions signing and so on will be handled under the hood by the withPayment interceptor, which comes from the Axios X402 library. And then we are just requesting the premium content like we did before, and then we get the payment response, and then we are already done. So it's quite a bit easier to use a facilitator. And yeah, it's easier, but it also it's a little bit of a risk. Like a facilitator is a little bit of a single point of failure. So like if for example, the facilitator runs out of funds, then you can't send transactions anymore. Or if there's a bug in the facilitator, because it's like a little bit dangerous to run as well, because the facilitator usually also signs the transaction, and because he will be the fee payer as well. So it's super cool because you can have transactions with just cost USDC and you don't need Sol, but it's also a little bit of a danger. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, of course. Like it makes it easier, but it also makes it a bit more error prone because you're not running everything yourself anymore. But you also don't have to run everything yourself. So and in the server, looks similar, so it's also pretty easy, just like payment with middleware. You define your different products here. We have like expensive and premium. Expensive costs 0.001 Sol only instead of 0.001. Then you have like app.get, your different API endpoints here. Then you have premium content and the expensive content, which has like a little diamond here. So yeah, so now I showed you all the examples. I think this should be enough to get you started, hopefully. And yeah, definitely make sure to submit your X402 apps to the Solana hackathon, which is currently running. I think there is 50,000 USD in prizes. And there's lots of participants, it's also like all the different SDK providers and so on. They have their own tracks. So Solana Foundation, Coinbase, Corbit, Crossmint, they all have their own Pay.AI, they all have their own little side tracks as well. So yeah, if you want to try out X402 and change the future of the internet potentially, definitely make sure to participate in the hackathon, try it out. And yeah, let me know what you're building. Also improve all the different SDKs that there are. Everything is still in development, and help is dearly needed. But I think lots of stuff you can already build with what's already there. So have fun and good luck in the hackathon.